How's it going, guys?
Say welcome to Tampa, welcome back.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a while. I come back once a year, but it's good. It's good to stick around a little longer this time.
Yeah, and just as a starting point, how cool it is to be back here and how much this city has meant to you personally.
Yeah, it's great. Grew up in Palm Harbor, so about 25 minutes down the road. But I laugh with my dad about it. Every day I walk to the cafeteria, there's that big shot of Brad Johnson holding the trophy, and then peeking in the background is him. So I'm like, I gotta look at your mug every day. So I'm reminded of kind of where I started and just running around the locker room with guys like John Lynch and Rondé Barber. Obviously, those guys doing media now and being a GM in the NFL. Just reminded of like where I began, just watching those guys and learning from them from such a young level. It's really cool to be back and just kind of carving my own path now too.
Right, you might be a little spoiled going from Tyler Lockett and Dave Metcalf, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, but just talk about the room that you're inheriting and which you've seen from afar and maybe up close with them on the grass or on the tape of Evans and Godwin.
Absolutely. When you talk about some of the best receiver rooms in the league, to be a part of two of them now is a real blessing. Just talk about pros too. You talk about the people. So talking to Mike on the phone and getting him in this building, getting him part of this group. Everything you hear about him and his approach has been phenomenal. You talk about Chris and working with him and watching him be an extension of me on the field as a coach. That helps. That really helps. And then the athletic stuff that they can do, that they can provide. It's hard to coach all the other guys and say, hey, you guys need to do what Mike and Chris do because they're special athletes, and everyone around the league they're trying to mimic them. So it's a blessing to be able to work with them, and then bringing other guys along too. Like Russell Gage has some really cool special traits that we want to get out of him. He showed it last year, and then we're going to continue to progress him and the two young guys that we're working with. Really excited about their progression as well. So you got two guys that have really kind of shown all the other guys we're going to bring in the building that are already here. Like, this is what your approach needs to look like. They've been doing it for a long time, so I'm very fortunate.
In the previous system, Chris was that big slot receiver, which isn't necessarily a traditional thing, compared to what some of the other teams are doing around the league. How does his role change in this new offense? Will we still see him lining up in the slot, or are we expecting to see him move to the outside more?
You'll see a little bit of everything, and I know it's kind of like coach speak, right? Oh, I don't want to give away our trade secrets, but Chris, early on, he can stretch the field, and that's what I want to continue to remind him of. He can stretch the field, and I know he's coming off of the knee injury from last year, and he's already shown it out there. Like, when you put him outside, like, this guy's he's a problem one-on-one. So the things that he brings in the slot, for me, that's a benefit to Chris, and that's stuff that he naturally does. That just opens his window up. You talk about coming from a room in Seattle where DK, we continue to develop his slot work from being an outside receiver. Chris has already shown that, and he already has experience with that. So we can use him in a lot of different ways right off the bat. But, yeah, I don't think we're going to lose some of that outside stuff, too, when you just say, hey, Chris, go win one-on-one. Hey, Mike, go win one-on-one outside.
It's probably a little strange to be a receiver coach with 5 receivers in your room, as it's been. That'll double and then some once you get the rookies here. I just want to ask you about that young group. I know there's some veteran tryouts guys as well, but just a draft pick and 3 signees and the rookies you have coming as well.
Yeah, it's honestly, I've loved every minute of it. You get to get your hands dirty, right? You get to work with the guys. You get to show them what you're trying to coach with repetition. So when you have a smaller room, you get to let them hear your emphasis. You get to, hey, stop the drill. Let's do it again. Some of the things that you would catch on tape later on in the day, because you have a group of 13 guys, you get to stop the drill and actually get to work through it with them right there on the spot. And then when we do bring in guys like Trey Palmer, Rakim Jarrett, and some of these other guys that we signed to bring in with the young class, it's gonna ramp up a little bit. But these guys have had 4 weeks now of hearing my teaching, and the last 2 meetings I've put a real emphasis on the guys that we do have here in this room. I want you guys to own the room. All right, I want ownership to start to create this bond between them. But then also when we're inside the white lines on game day, those are the guys making the decisions. Those are the guys that have to communicate. So as long as they can teach the guys around them, then they'll start to create that ownership that I want to see in the room. So that's the benefit of having them, a small room the last couple of weeks. they're starting to feel that. They know what I want. They know what I want to try to see out of them, and then they're going to get to kind of pass that forward with the young guys coming in.
Speaking of small, Devin Tompkins is a small guy, but with his vertical, he can play bigger than he is. What have you been able to see, whether it's watching his film from last year or at Utah State or out there on the grass now?
Yeah, he's a special athlete. He is a lot of fun to work with, and he soaks things up like a sponge. So when it comes to having a special athlete like that, a lot of times they just rely on what they have, right? They rely on the speed and the twitch that he obviously brings, when you're looking at him off the hoof. But when you start to break him down and work with him fundamentally as a receiver, that's what excites me, because he's a lot of the times they're just like, hey, go out there, catch this bubble, go make a guy miss. Hey, go run a deep, a deep fade, work a release, and then beat the guy off the line. But when we're working the fundamentals of route running for him, that's where he's starting to make strides in these last 2 weeks of being on the field with him. And I'm really excited to just develop his route tree outside and become a true receiver, not just an athlete catching the ball and running around. I'm not saying he was just that last year, but he's already made a lot of strides in some of the fundamentals of route running.
Where is he in terms of kind of reaching his potential? Because we knew when he came in last year, he was going to be more of a guy that they developed along and worked along, that they can even set. But just where is he at in terms of kind of reaching that potential?
I don't think you ever know until you get into the competitive period. So you could have a guy that's really good at running the indie drills and running routes on air, and then, when you put a DB in front of him, things look different. So for me, like, I've seen it on tape already. He shined last year when he had his small opportunities. But when we get into the competitive periods and OTAs and in minicamp, like, that's when it's really going to come to life. That's when we need to see the production and all of that fundamental work kind of pay off.
If you can't talk about Trey Palmer, what have you seen from him on tape at Nebraska that got you excited?
Yeah, size and speed. He jumps off the tape, right? He's the guy who can stretch the field vertically. We have guys that can do that in their own way, but when you're talking about a bigger body that can run 4.3, that's special and something you can't coach. So he's been great too, mentally in the meetings, locked in, a guy who he wants to reach his potential. So we're talking about DT's potential. Trey's a guy who wants to reach that potential and prove guys, prove guys wrong. Hey, why wasn't I drafted higher? Hey, why wasn't I taken sooner? Well, this guy's going to stretch the field from us day one. We've had guys in the past in Seattle that have kind of fit that type of role, and he's going to come in here blazing.
Your father's had a lot of success at different stops throughout his NFL career, and I'm sure that's you being around him. That's helped you quickly learn about the game, the ins and outs, and all of that. Talk about Kade Warner and having a father like Kurt Warner and what you saw from him at Kansas State that has you excited about him coming in.
Yeah, he's just got a natural feel. He caught a lot of balls in the last couple of years, and then when you talk about the mental aspect of the game, you start to realize, okay, why is this guy so good at feeling the zone coverage, working the middle of the field? It's because he knows the plays just like a quarterback does. He's the one bugging me at night with texts. Hey, coach, what is there something wrong with this picture? Oh shoot, yeah, you caught us slipping on one of our pictures on one of the depths or one of the splits, or so he's mentally engaged as if he was a quarterback, and you can tell, okay, he's a chip off the old block that way, and that just helps him play fast. And you see it on tape. There's no hesitation in his game because he is so smart. He's so quick-witted.
With Chris, I know he can do everything. Oh my God, and he's dynamic and has been in the slot. And he's tough as hell. But by playing him outside, can't you keep him healthier? Isn't there more protection with the boundary than what he's been doing?
Absolutely, and that's really the first call I have with him is we want to keep you on the field the best we can. I know you're ready to run through a brick wall for your brothers, but we're not going to ask you to do that every play. You look at a progression of, I gave him the example of Larry Fitzgerald, right, towards the end of his career. When he started to lose some of his explosion and his downfield ability, then he was limited to the slot. Chris is not there yet. Chris still has that ability to win outside, so we don't need him banging every play. And when we ask him to do it, he'll do it willingly, and we love that about him. But we do want to preserve him too, and we want him playing here for a long time.
You come into an interesting situation where you worked with Dave before. You know his system, you know his offense, and all the other assistant coaches are trying to catch up to it. On the flip side, these coaches have been here for a while. They know all the players. You're still getting to know them. So how much are you interacting with the other coaches, just kind of picking each other's brains where you're showing them a little bit more of the offense, they're giving you a little more insight on these players on a daily basis?
That's been the beauty of it all. The communication between all of us coaches has been phenomenal, and I couldn't say more about the guys that have been in this building and how much they've helped me and Dave understand who we're dealing with. Both as an athlete, okay, here's maybe some limitations a guy has, or here's what he excels at, but also the mental side of things. Like, hey, here's how Ryan Jensen's going to pick up a protection, or what he's going to think of when we give him, this piece of, whatever the game plan is. So they've been phenomenal that way, and they've also soaked up like a sponge too, just our experience of being in this system that Dave's been building over the years. And we had experience with that too on the reverse side in Seattle when we brought Shane Waldron in, and we had to kind of massage, okay, he's bringing in a new system, but we've been with the players, okay? So there's a lot of communication when it comes to, okay, here's what we did, and that's the dangerous part from a schematic standpoint, saying, hey, here's what we did, just translate it, black and white, exactly what you used to call this is what we're going to. It's like, no, we want to start from square one and build this thing from the ground up, but here's who we're working with. That's where the huge value of the guys in the building that they provided for us from day one. And now we're all starting, you see it when you're out there on the practice field, everybody's starting to interject more and more when it comes to the system, because the coaches have all soaked it up and they all know it and they own it now as we go and we hit these. Okay, hey, what's the detail on the top of this route? Hey, what do you want the hand placement on this block? Okay, once we hit it once, the coaches know it, and now you see them interject in the drills more as far as the scheme's concerned. So they've been a huge help, just like you said, with the players that have been in the building, but then the scheme now, we get into week 4, week 5 of this thing, you'll see more and more of everybody's participating and now interjecting, understanding exactly what Dave wants to accomplish.
A couple more, please. You know Dave Canales better than anybody in this building. He has not called a play since high school, since he was a coach in high school, a long time ago. It seems like he's got all the confidence in the world. What gives you the confidence that he's going to be a very good play caller this year in Tampa Bay?
Oh, well, he has called plays in practice situations, in live situations, in mock games. Before every single game, me and Dave would take our trip up to the booth, and we would call a mock game. So I've seen him. The players feel it. Go ask Geno Smith. Ask Geno Smith how Dave would be as a play caller, and I guaranteed he'd stand on the podium for him saying, this guy, he gets it. Dave has such a natural feel when it comes to the game of football that I got no doubt. And I know he can talk up here for days, but he can also come up here just as natural as he is in front of a mic in front of you guys. He's just same when he's on the mic on the headset. And you can ask Brian Schottenheimer, you can ask Shane Waldron, you can ask Pete Carroll, who do they go to for help when they need it most, when the shots are firing? Hey, I don't want anyone else on the mic. Dave, what do you want here? So he's had guys lean on him the past 13 years in Seattle when at the most critical moments, and Dave comes through time and time again.
What's it been like with having him stay with you? A little bit more of a full house, I guess?
A little bit more of a full house. I adopted 4 kids and his wife and his dog and some of their stuff. That part's been phenomenal, though. We were 2 blocks away from each other in Seattle. So beyond Dave being my boss, my friend, like I truly see him as family. He was like, yeah, we're going to try to rent a house. We're going to try to find somewhere to live. I was like, no, you guys are moving in with me. Like you got to come over because his kids, I'm Uncle Brad to them. Like it's been phenomenal. It's been special that way. And I think we'll all feel it here in the staff room. Like that's how we live. Like we want this to be truly like a family, to go to bat for each other. We talked about Chris being able to run through a brick wall for his brothers. Like we're going to feel the same way in that staff room come game 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.